250,000 space pilots inhabit the vast universe of EVE Online. They form alliances, sometimes with up to 5,000 players simultaneously, or travel alone in search of adventure. There are empires, multinationals, smugglers, pirates, and travelling salesmen. They trade with each other, travel, bank, spy on each other, destroy and admire. And all this under the watchful eye of a management team that insists it is not God.
Okay, the idea of God is that God is a power that can do what he wants to do. If he wants to turn the earth green, he will do that. If he were to do a modification in EVE, it's gonna involve graphic asset outsourcing, it's going to involve game design, it's going to involve a lot of balancing, it's going to involve a lot of testing. It usually takes about 6 months to do any meaningful change to the game. And I mean, God certainly doesn't have those limitations according to the gospel at least. So, I mean, we are the janitors, we are the operators, we are the servicer of EVE Online. We're by any stretch of the imagination, gods of EVE Online.
It's really about the people, it's not so much about the game itself. So when you launch the game, you have very little idea of how it's going to pan out, except from, what you sort of hope for. And in many ways, EVE has exceeded that in ways that we could not imagine.
They made a conscious decision in the beginning that they were not going to do this Greek god thing. And if somebody scams you out of assets, even if it's like $10,000 in US money or $20,000 in US money, that's too bad. It's not their job to police this sort of thing. And in fact, that happened. Someone did get scammed out of $10,000, $20,000 worth of assets, and the owners of EVE Online just said, look, this is the game, right?
I think the biggest challenge for us is to continue our approach to letting go as much as possible. Every time the world has reached a size where it's ready to accept more responsibility, we as a company have to learn how to let go more and more. And I mean, the Council of Stellar Management is one example of that.
The Parliament members discussed their chairman, size limitations on cargo and spaceships, the stock market, inflation and suicide attacks. Vainglorious and Darius Johnson are from the Goon Fleet.
I get in my ship and I blow up people I don't like. Okay, so now I dock at the station. If I'm the guy who plays the game to just blow up people I don't like, what's my motivation to get out of my spaceship?
Their goal is to take over the EVE universe and thus destroy the gaming pleasure of all their opponents. After winning a war against the Band of Brothers, their attitude changed. They became addicted to the game as all other players.
Even though people think that they're out to destroy EVE Online, they're really just playing the game. The game is about the players and what they do. And if some group of players want to destroy the game, that will cause a reaction from the rest of the world. And that's interesting. I mean, I don't really think you can destroy EVE Online, because ultimately everybody that's tried to do it, they just end up playing.
The reason for being here is really it's the first online democracy ever. Really, that's the key, and I really want to be part of it. And more than anything, I think that there's a responsibility as the first democracy to ensure a system that's going to work for the future.
The game's creators listen patiently to the members of the Council of Stellar Management. There's just one slight problem. The Parliament has no power. And that's only logical, according to CEO Hilmar Petersen.
Yeah, in the beginning, they will definitely, their biggest power will be sort of setting the agenda, like what issues do they want to bring to us, and how can we help? And but as the whole concept moves on, and if they are able to bring to us matters which are truly representative of players' concerns, then their influence will grow over time. Power is not something you give to people. Power is something that power and influence is something that you earn over time.
Parliamentary advice is limited to within the boundaries of the online world. discussions about the height of subscription fees, for example, are off limits.
If these people have said, well, we need more money, we are going to increase the prices, then okay, that would be acceptable. But if they take a little detour and throw cents at people's face.
But I would just like to emphasize in terms of the pricing of the GTC codes that that's simply a business decision that needed to be made, and EVE will always be more expensive than other items. So there's not really much I think I can convey to you about the pricing as such.
Ultimately, democracies were either from monarchs that built a parliament, or it was people revolting to build a parliament. And so I think these institutions were born out of dictatorship, or they were disrupted from dictatorships. And I would say we're giving the power back before it's taken.
The governance has to arise organically from the users. So the users are the people that make use of this space. They're the people who carry on their business there. They're the people who carry on their relationships and in some sense their love lives online. If this is the space where they're doing this communicating and earning their livings and so forth, then shouldn't those be the people that are in charge of governing what transacts there and what happens there?
As we move forward into the uncharted virtual space, distinctions between online and offline, real and fantasy, may become less important.
It is going to be remarkable how much of human intellectual activity is going to move to virtual and do it very quickly.
But will we ever choose the virtual world over the real one?
Every aspect of the human sensory experience will ultimately be things that we can replicate in computers. However, that process is a pretty lengthy one. Certainly the feeling of being in an organic environment, of touching things, you know, of feeling the wind. There are so many human experiences like that that are going to take years to digitize.
I don't think people will forget about the real world. It's too real. It's too here. I think that in the end we're made of meat, and it's hard to give up on the meat. It's hard to forget what we really are.
Will there ever be a perfect world online? Although technology continues to progress in leaps and bounds, virtual societies are still at the very beginning of their moral, social, and economic development. Their citizens still need to go through all the equivalent phases of creating a civilized world, from caveman to spaceman. It seems that the slow and complex path towards civilization in the real world must be retaken step by step in the virtual one. The same basic questions will need to be resolved again. How should we be governed? Who makes the laws? So even if the quest for a virtual utopia eventually fails, it may be that the real progress comes from the very act of trying to construct it.